Welcome to the Carriker Chronicles, the People Show. Checking the polls for Husker Nation, brought to you by DPS Concrete Construction. Check them out at dpsconstruction.net. If you're like me and you're excited that Keona Davis, one of our young core players, is now back on the team here at Nebraska. All right, then smash that like button, ladies and gentlemen. It goes beyond Keona Davis. It's about young core players. That's how you build your team. Players are going to come and go. People are going to come and go. That's just, oh my God, it's the way of college football. There's nearly 4,000 football players who've entered the transfer portal over this past time or so. I can't think of the word, but you get what I'm saying. My point is simply this. And I've added some core players, some young core players to the list I shared last night. Some fine folks hit me up. They're like, Adam, you got to add Jalen Lloyd, added to our young core player list. Keona Davis is now added. Carter Nelson. Would you add Heinrich Harburg to our core player list? All right, let me know in the comments below. Would you add Heinrich Harburg? He's like maybe my favorite player on the team this year. Last year was Ty Robinson. Would you add him to the young core players list? Let me know yes or no below. But I think young core players are what you build a program around, and then you supplement with transfer portal guys. To me, they're very, very important to any college football program. Now, if you haven't done so yet, make sure you subscribe, ring that notification bell. At the back end of this show today, Jordan Larson, one of the greatest volleyball players of all time, the freaking governor, joins me to talk about the Olympics, John Cook, and the NCAA tournament in this year's Nebraska volleyball team as well. This was interesting. I saw this on Twitter via Mitch Sherman. Maybe it's just my general mood today because I'm taking the rest of the week off. I do not care what happens, but I feel the offseason tide turning around. Nebraska's starting to turn. Offseason national championship in the months ahead appears imminent. Then one person responded. All right, these are the tweets that I'm reading. All right, said Husker Mahomes World, said, give me some portal news and then we can talk. Mitch Sherman said, Keona Davis, Emmett Johnson coming back, question mark. There's reason for optimism, ladies and gentlemen, amidst the insanity that is Nebraska's off season. All right, Nebraska's football schedule. All right, the Huskers are going to play, hey, SEC, ACC, you listening? 9 conference games. 9 conference games. Nebraska will play 5 Big Ten home games at Memorial Stadium, along with 4 league road contests. Huskers begin Big Ten play action at home against Michigan on September 20th, marking the second straight year Nebraska's opened Big Ten play in Lincoln. In fact, Nebraska and Northwestern are the only 2 Big Ten teams that open with 2 straight conference home games on the 2025 schedule. That's according to Sean Callahan. Is the Big Ten being nice to us? No, I don't think so. All right, Nebraska has 7 home games, 4 road games, 1 neutral site game. Now, I've heard that it's going to be moved to Kansas City. I look at HuskerMax.com. They do a great job. David Max, Joe Hudson, shout out to them. Had a relationship with them for over a decade. It says Indianapolis, other places you look to be determined. First game of the year, neutral site. Cincinnati's giving up a home game. Thank you. Don't know exactly where it's going to be. At least I don't. Maybe someone who's more adept to scheduling and all that knows. But I don't know where it's going to be just yet. Oh, yeah. Shout out to Nate Borkashire. All right, he's entered the transfer portal. Wish him nothing but the best. That leaves us with Thomas Fedoti, Luke Lindenmeyer in that tight end room. I'm excited to watch that tight end battle unfold. Also, quick transfer portal update. Florida International wide receiver Eric Rivers is going to be visiting Lincoln December 15th and 16th. All right, back to Nebraska's schedule. All right, we open up with Cincinnati. This is a Power 4 team. We scheduled a Power 4 team in our non-conference. Every team should do that. Every team should play 9 conference games. Just my thought. Then we play Akron. Then we play Houston Christian. Is that our version of Mercer? Okay. Michigan, as we open Big Ten play here in Lincoln. I want the stadium rocking that day. Michigan State follows. All right. At Maryland. Then we go to Minnesota. Ooh. The fighting PJ Flex. Row the boat, I guess. Northwestern. All right, then we're going to have a fun game in Lincoln versus USC. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of fun. All right, and I should mention Nebraska's first bye week was after that Michigan game earlier on before the Michigan State game. And then we go out to Pasadena, play UCLA, and then a bye week. And I noticed the bye week is between the West Coast trip out to Pasadena and UCLA and the East Coast trip out to play at Penn State. Again, it's the Big Ten trying to be nice to us in scheduling. Oh my goodness, I'm not used to that. And then we close the season with them boys, our good buddies from Iowa. And then the Big Ten championship game, right, Matt Rule? Just saying. All right, we should be fresh for those last 2 games, 2 big games. All right, Penn State and Iowa following a bye week. In the month of November, it's loaded. We've got USC, UCLA, Penn State, Iowa. All right, we have 2 bye weeks again. I like that with the toughness that is the Super Conference college football schedule, especially Big Ten, SEC. I like having 2 bye weeks. That wasn't always the case beforehand. All right, we have a bye week after our first 4 games. You got kind of 4 games to get into the groove of the season. Then we got a bye week before we play Michigan. Then we play 6 straight games. Then a bye week, as I mentioned, after the UCLA game before we have our last 2 games. There's Penn State and Iowa. Should be fresh. And no Wisconsin, no Ohio State. We pick up Michigan and Penn State in their place. I hesitate to say this. The difficulty of this schedule seems eerily similar to last year. Don't try to project how difficult the schedule is going to be. All right, ladies and gentlemen, because here's what happens. We kick the ball off and all hell breaks loose, and I'm here for it. All right, that's my initial reaction to Nebraska's college football schedule for next year. All right, Marshall wins a conference championship. You've probably seen some of these things, but for those who haven't, Marshall wins a conference championship. Their head coach doesn't get a raise, doesn't really get rewarded, so he's now the head coach at Southern Miss. And the article I'm looking at, or what I'm looking at, the entire Marshall football team is entering the transfer portal. I've seen this like 5 places. So here's the exact quote, and I quote, basically, Marshall could lose its entire roster, end quote. They're going to play Army, number 22, 11-1, AAC champs. Stomped a mud hole, all right, when they won that AAC championship game and their opponent in the bowl game. Good luck with that. Now, Arkansas, talking about teams that have had a lot of people go. All right, the SEC has a few teams that have seen a large number of players enter the portal. All right, Arkansas is the leader. As of Wednesday morning, Arkansas has had 25 outgoing players in the portal. Mississippi State, 22. Another Power 4 school with a lot of transfers is UCF with 22, since Gus Malzahn has moved on to Florida State and Scott Frost has come in as the head coach. Nebraska, I'm just saying, there's a 4.5-star long snapper here in the state of Nebraska. Houston Hill, 6'1", 207 pounds. He's in the 2025 class. Long snapping is important, if you didn't notice. Bill Belichick is finalizing a deal to be North Carolina's head coach. So Mac Brown was the oldest coach in all of college football. Bill Belichick at 72 is now the oldest coach in all of college football. And I saw this stat. It made me laugh. Bill Belichick, once he's officially the head coach in North Carolina, will be the college football coach with the most amount of NFL wins in his career. Here's why I chuckled. I don't know. Has he ever won a college football game as a head coach? Somebody let me know in the comments below. I didn't take the time to look it up. He has 333 career NFL wins, 6 Super Bowls as a head coach, also won some at the Giants as a defensive coordinator. You know, Bill Belichick's a phenomenal football mind. Nobody's going to outsmart or outscheme him. He was the general manager, one of the greatest general managers in the history of college football with the New England Patriots. But can he handle the chaos that is college football? He has way more control, used to in the NFL, than he's going to have in college football. I don't know. This is going to be entertaining to watch him in North Carolina. All right, don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. How important do you believe core players are? Let me know in the comments below. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, it'll be Jordan Larson time. Back, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm happy to bring on our special guest at this time. She's from Hooper, Nebraska, a 4-time Olympian, won a gold medal, a couple of silver medals, bronze medal, over a 15-year career as a professional volleyball player. By the way, the most medals of any women's volleyball player in history. Retired in 2023, then came out of retirement, joined the U.S. women's team to play in the Olympics. All right, in Paris, along with 2 other Huskers, so 3 total Huskers in the 2024 Olympics. At Nebraska, 3-time All-American, 2-time Big 12 Player of the Year, 2006 National Champ, and Nebraska current assistant volleyball coach. Miss Jordan Larson, how you doing, my friend?
Good. How are you? Good to be back.
Oh, man, life is great. I appreciate you taking the time to join me. So I got a question. I've interviewed you a few times, and I don't think I've ever asked you this one particular question. So how did you get the nickname of the governor?
Yeah, so one of my really good friends on the team, Luca, we were in Thailand. I think it was my second or third year on the national team, and a guy was like waving me down and had a red shirt on. He's like, "Oh my gosh, I know your dad." And Luca's like, "Seriously? We're like all the way in Thailand and someone like knows who you are, right?" And
yep.
knows my dad. And she's telling this story to her brother, and he was like, "Well, I mean, duh, she's like the governor of Nebraska." And so Luca is, she's just really good at names, and so she'll just continue to call it until you start responding. And so, yeah, it just kind of stuck, and then I started joking about it. So here we are.
I like it. With all due respect to Jim Pillen, we have a new governor in the state of Nebraska. All right.
That was the funny thing is that I saw him this summer, and he's like, governor? And I was like, no. I was like, no. But it was, yeah, he was awesome about it all. So.
I'm just gonna make my kids start calling me president, and maybe I'll end up. I don't know if I want to be president. Never mind. That was a bad idea.
I like it.
All right. So you retired 2023, came back out of retirement to go to the Paris Olympics with the U.S. women's team. Talk to me about the decision to come out of retirement and what it was like playing in the Olympics this past year.
Yeah, it definitely was not in the plan. I didn't think, I felt like I was in a pretty good place. And some things outside of the gym happened that I wasn't foreseeing. I was ready to start a family and all these things, but I still when I stepped away, I still had love for the game. That didn't go away, and so I took a contract in Italy, thinking if I can still like it. And then the national team was kind of on the table, but not really. And then I had a conversation with Coach, and I never really closed the door officially. So it was kind of like, hey, if you want to come back, you can. And it was just a really good, kind of a couple of years to heal personally, and then also just help where I can with the team. I think that the turnover on the national team isn't as much as what you see in college, every 4 years, right? But I do think that there's, when people retire from the national team, especially maybe more in a leadership role, it's hard to kind of step into that and kind of know the transition. So I feel like my role is more of, obviously wherever I can fit in, and if I can help, that's great. But also just more of a mentorship piece that allowed me to kind of also understand myself better too.
So talk to me about playing in foreign countries, Italy and other countries, and what it's like to compete at the frickin' Olympics. What are these things like? It's got to be pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's an adjustment too, right? Obviously people live different than we do here, and but it's so cool to learn the mentality and learn what makes people successful other places. And I think that learning how to adapt and adjust, not only as an athlete but as a person, really it just makes you really appreciate what we have here in the United States, and then also just appreciate the convenience of being able to speak English. It's the littlest thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then I think obviously the weight of the Olympics, right? It's huge, it's amazing, and right, it's a once in a lifetime experience most of the time. I'm lucky that I got to go a couple times, and but yeah, I think that the older I've gotten, it's more of just trying to kind of to be able to perform in that moment. It's almost you have to detach from the emotional side of it, right? You can't, if you make the event bigger than it is, then your actions or your behaviors are going to be different, and it's going to show up different, right? So I really tried to kind of, hey, I'm doing the same thing I do every day. I practice, I play, I'm doing that exact same. It's just called the Olympic Games. And so I really tried to have that approach and do that.
All right. So what are some of your favorite memories? It can be from your time as a Husker, your professional career. What are some of your favorite memories that you might have sharing with the fine folks?
Oh, goodness. Yeah. Obviously, I think the 08 team always has a special place in our heart of just we had a lot of talent, but I think we believed in ourselves, and you could feel the energy of just how can we give to one another, and it was really, we outperformed in the best way, right? And I think that's what ultimately you hope for in every team is to max out and to find the best solution for that team. I feel like in 2016 we also kind of had that feeling at the Olympics. We should have been in the final, in my opinion. We did things right, tried to show up and be a good teammate every day, and I thought that translated well. And then I would say lead up to Tokyo, it was during COVID. I think it was a really good time for us as a team. We got to step away and really evaluate what we needed and how do we create this better cohesion with the coaching staff. And then obviously to walk away with the gold medal, first one in USA volleyball history, is just icing on the cake, right?
Yep.
And then, I just think that now just being in just team environments and being around people that want to be their best selves, it's really a fun environment to be a part of.
All right, so obviously most people know you're helping coach the Nebraska volleyball team so far this year. You guys played a brutal schedule, still finished among the top in the country, a number 1 seed, co-Big Ten champs. All right, so first 2 rounds of the tournament are over. Look awfully good in those first 2 rounds against Florida A&M and Miami. So talk to me about the season so far in Nebraska volleyball and kind of your assessment up to this point.
Yeah, just really proud of our girls. I think that obviously last year was bittersweet for us. I think that, sometimes you have to give kudos to the other team, and I thought Texas played unreal. I think it was a good learning point for us of just how do we want to show up this year and what do we want it to look like and how we want it to feel. And I think we have an edge this year, and I think you're seeing that in how we show up and how we do things. And so, like you said, we played a pretty tough schedule. Obviously, we had a little hiccup here late in the game against Penn State, but in general, I feel like, we have good role clarity, we have good lines of communication amongst players, and I feel like we're executing at a very high level. So I'm really proud, and just to see now, how their brains are thinking about the game and just how they each individually have their own story. It's really fun to be a part of and to follow as well.
This show is brought to you by DPS Concrete Construction. You can check them out at dpsconstruction.net. They are your local concrete experts. All things concrete, all things retaining wall, and the like. If you need this work done, go to dpsconstruction.net. If this is your line of work, go to dpsconstruction.net. Also, bonzelpool.com. They have great hot tubs, pools, and saunas. If you need them, they've got them. Check them out at bonzelpool.com. Also, if you have the aforementioned hot tub, pool, and sauna, you need them taken care of, go to bonzelpool.com. All right, so talk to me. Obviously, you mentioned last year's team made it to the national championship match without a senior. Pretty impressive. Texas, it goes the way it goes. They're a pretty good team. Kudos to them, like you mentioned. But talk to me about, because there's going to be obvious similarities from this year's to last year's team with a lot of girls back. But what are some of the similarities, but what are some of the differences from last year's team to this year's team?
Yeah, like you said, I think we had some youth, and I think also, too, sometimes when you're not in that environment, it's hard to know the kind of emotions that you're going to go through, right? Or feelings that are going to pop up, or things like how to handle. And I think that we are much more prepared. Not that we weren't at the time, we prepared as much as we could, but sometimes the event itself, you can't really, facilitate because it's just hard to imitate those feelings, right? And so I think we have a maturity about us now, and we talk about it, right? This competitive maturity. What does that actually mean, and how do we want it to translate within gameplay? And then also, I think just interpersonally, how do we continue to connect? And, we had some stuff off season, that I think allowed, a lot more tighter bond that they have to have and be able to work together for the bigger whole. So I don't know, again, I'm really proud to see how they've handled themselves, and but in general, just a layer of maturity through the year.
I definitely feel like when you just watch the team and things that they're putting out on social media and little things here and there, they definitely seem to be very, very close with Coach Cook. I loved watching him attempting to return some of those receives from the girl she poked fun at her serve the other day. Well, now you get to try to return them, and let's just say hilarity ensued. Check that out on TikTok.
Exactly.
Yeah, check that out on TikTok if you want, folks. So you mentioned last offseason, okay? And sometimes things like that can make it harder for a team to come together. It seems like the girls almost came together that much more. Whether it be like Harper Murray seems to be that much closer with John Cook as he stepped in and kind of helped out with a lot of things, but the team as a whole. Talk to me about that. And then throughout points this season, not a ton, but at times, even after the Penn State match, there was some negativity that kind of came around. So when you're advising the girls on how to handle the things in the off season, or some of the things happened after post Penn State match, how do you handle that, and how do you advise them?
Yeah, it's tough. I think the stage and what we're dealing with now, just people have access to our athletes more than they've ever had, right? And their ability to speak their opinion, and everyone is technically entitled to their own opinion. I guess I try to encourage girls, just not read it. People don't really fully know because they're not. It's hard. People only see the outside, and they see certain judgments as a translation of things, but they don't see the everyday, work that we're putting in. And so, and it's tough. They're young kids, and I think that's what people have to remember is that they're still children to some degree, right? They're young adults, but they're also trying to figure it out themselves. And I think that a little grace I mean, don't get me wrong, I love to win, and I love to win a lot, and I understand that. But I think learning grace and forgiveness for our players, that they're not trying to mess up, they're trying to be very successful, and that comes with a lot of weight and pressure and having to manage that, which on the flip side is like, it's also a privilege. Like, we get to represent Nebraska, and it's a privilege, right? And but with that comes some heaviness. And so I guess I just try to encourage them to just be strong, independent, and be themselves. And they know the truth of their own life and what they're living and what they're trying to do every day. And that's what they get to take home and try to do that for themselves. So it's not easy, but I'm really proud of how we've handled ourselves. And yeah, I mean, Harper has just done so much work internally, and then also that translates to the team. It's not been easy, but I also think we've done a very good job of managing all that.
Next up, you've got Dayton. If you beat Dayton, I'll say it here. When you beat Dayton, then you either get to play Wisconsin or Texas A&M. So let's talk about Dayton real briefly, but then let's talk about potentially a third match. All right, you went up to Madison, beat them for the first time there since 2012, swept them 2-0 against them this year, but playing against Wisconsin potentially for a third time this year. As you look at Dayton and you look at a potential another matchup with Wisconsin, I know you're going to say one match at a time. I respect that, but what are your thoughts on all of that as a whole?
Yeah, no, it's going to be a fun weekend, and Dayton's playing some really good volleyball right now, and it's going to be fun to play them, obviously at home. And then, like you said, I mean, I think Texas A&M, I think they've had a really, Jamie Morrison, I used to work with them on the national team, has done a really good job with that team, and has had they beat Texas at 5, and have had some just really good highs for the season. And so, I don't want to discount them because I think that at this point it's anybody's game, right? And but obviously Wisconsin has a history, and they're a very good team as well. So, but like you said, it's going to take us just being us. I mean, I think people also think when we get to the tournament that we have to do things differently, and we have to all of a sudden create some magic plan, and at the end of the day, it's like, if we're just really good at what we do, the rest will come, and I think buying into that of just like, we've been, I love this term now, I heard it on a little podcast, like stacking days, right? Like we're continuing to put in work every day, and we're depositing money in the bank, and now it's time to withdraw. And I think that our players feel like they have put in the work, and we can go out there and be proud and confident that we can take on whoever the next opponent is, and just play Nebraska volleyball. So that's our main focus, and I hope our players continue to lean into that piece of it.
All right, one last question for you. And this is obviously Nebraska volleyball encompassing. You could say this applies to football or basketball or just Nebraska sports in general, because I get kind of tired of hearing, oh, you can't win at Nebraska, and then you've got this challenge and that challenge. And yeah, every place has its pluses, its challenges, whatever the case may be. Football won 9 games for 40-plus years. Okay, volleyball continues to win year after year and be successful. John Cook just had the #1 recruiting class in the country not that long ago. Okay, very recent history. So my question for you is, what John Cook has shown and what's been shown in other sports over time, when people say, man, it's hard to, you just can't do it at Nebraska, like, what are your thoughts when people say things like that and you hear things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think this grace piece, I think it's a little unrealistic to think that it can happen all the time, right? I think that, things ebb and flow with time, but I do think that depending on how you choose to approach, I think your mindset or your athletes, I think that it's possible anywhere. And I think that what makes at least Nebraska the volleyball piece is like obviously the environment, right? Where we get to play, the sold out crowds, right? That leads to a lot of success for us because, we get to play in front of that every night, right? It's the one and the only places in the country that gets to do that. So, I mean, that in itself is a selling point, but I do think that what makes this place so special, and I think what other people need to realize, is just the people are so amazing, right? Like, you're at the grocery store and they're saying, hey, how are you? How is the game? Like, they're really ingrained in the culture of like taking pride in the state and also what the sports do. And so I think that as an athlete or as a coach that's coming here, like that the support is there and the community is there to like want to be great. And I think that it's possible, just depending depends on how you choose to go about it as a head coach.
All right, I appreciate you taking the time to join me. Good luck as you go forward in the NCAA tournament. All right, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you check out CarrikerChronicles.com. We got Nebraska football, basketball, women's, men's, volleyball coverage. All the Husker sports are there at CarrikerChronicles.com. Here are my 3 questions for you fine folks at home. Let me know your answer in the comments below. Number 1, will Nebraska volleyball reach the Final Four? You can let me know. Number 2, all right, do you believe Nebraska can have consistent success across the board in multiple sports, whether it be Hoiberg or Amy Williams in the men's and women's basketball, Coach Rule with Nebraska football? And number 3, is the Devaney Center, all right, Nebraska volleyball, all right, is it the best atmosphere in college volleyball across the board? All right, Jordan, do you want to join me in saying throw the bones?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, go Big Red, and always remember to throw the bones.
Let's go.